In this video, we'll be discussing the oral cavity and the oropharynx. If you'll recall, once again, that's the hard palate. It's supposed to make noise. Anyway, the hard palate, and this would be our soft palate. So everything dorsal to that was the nasal cavity. Ventral that, we're in the oral cavity. We've already talked about a few of the structures that are important in the oral cavity. One of those with that sublingual caruncle, which is where the mandibular and monostomatic part of the sublingual salivary gland will open. All of the other sublingual ducts will just open in the oral cavity itself. As we progress farther into the oral cavity, first of all, we notice that our tongue, excuse me, let me move this over. The tongue is attached to the base of by what we refer to as a frenulum. And it also has this little arch that comes over to the soft palate, and that is called the palatoglossal arch, and is an approximate position of that the ending of the oral cavity and the beginning of the oropharynx. So as our oral cavity ends and our oropharynx begins, we look dorsally in that oral pharynx, and we can find tucked under this cute little semilunar fold is the palatine tonsil. Obviously, here's our soft palate, and there's our little palatine tonsil located in there. So if you'll recall, we talked about the nasopharynx and the oropharynx coming together. Then ultimately that will lead into the laryngopharynx, which is over the larynx. And that laryngopharynx will be terminated by the opening of the esophagus at the esophageal, esophageal lining. Very briefly, there is one other arch to talk about, and that is the palatopharyngeal arch, which will terminate from the nasopharynx into the laryngopharynx. So that ends our discussion of oral cavity, a bit of oropharynx, some of our nasopharynx, over into our laryngopharynx, and terminating with the esophagus. We will conclude this video now.